Hello and welcome to the 2021 French GP strategy analysis for Alfa Romeo. Today we'll be looking at a comparison strategy for the drivers, position movements and race pace. This is part of the teams video series for the French GP. You can see more on the channel. So starting with a comparison of the strategy for the two drivers, relatively similar concept in terms of hard tire onto medium. Giovinazzi only on the hard tire until lap 27-28, whereas Raikkonen could last a little bit longer. So similar strategy actually that was employed by Ocon from Giovinazzi in terms of that pit in the late 20s. And looking at the positions here, Giovinazzi starting in 13th and getting all the way up to 9th place as some of the people on the medium tyres to start pitted before obviously falling down after pitting and then making his way back up again. Whereas Raikkonen, in comparison, lasted a bit longer on that initial set of tyres. But you can see here laps 20 downwards really showing getting overtaken by a lot of those midfield players who came through on fresher tyres then. So let's have a look at some race pace. So the total gap between the two, so up here Raikkonen's ahead, down here Giovinazzi's ahead, which was the case for most of the race. So you can see here initially very, very close between the two. Really only extended past 5 seconds in lap 22, lap 23. So relatively close all the way through there. And it was actually at that point that Raikkonen really started to increase the pace compared to Giovinazzi, and Giovinazzi's tyres looked like they were starting to go off a little bit and his pace was slowing down. So hence why Giovinazzi came in when he did. And when he did, you can see this real quick increase in pace compared to Raikkonen, trying to catch up some of that time after the pit stop. And once Raikkonen pitted, that trend continued. So you would have expected Raikkonen to really flatline that bit compared to Giovinazzi, or even gain some time on the fresher tyres, but didn't really happen. And it wasn't until later on in the stint that Raikkonen was actually starting to make some inroads in Giovinazzi, but not nearly enough given how many laps were left. So then looking at all the laps here, including the pit stops, initially, as you can see, relatively equal, but Raikkonen 1 or 2 laps slower there. And then here you can really see as Giovinazzi's tyres started to go off, his pace just decreased a little bit, whereas Raikkonen could get a little bit quicker there. And then right after the pit stop, Giovinazzi much quicker than Raikkonen. Then once Raikkonen put the new tyres on, he was consistently quicker than Giovinazzi, but as you can see here, there's just a few laps where he was a little bit inconsistent, and whether that was traffic or getting lapped, that really actually cost him quite a bit of time compared to Giovinazzi. And then zooming in again here, just to get a better look once we take out the pit stops, you can see Raikkonen, some good stints where he was clearly quicker than Giovinazzi, but very up and down, and again, a lot of that could have done with traffic and being lapped by the leaders. So there you go. It was really this section here, though, that was a big difference. Just these series of laps that Raikkonen was a bit slower. So having a look here, time differential. So Raikkonen's quicker on top, Giovinazzi quicker on the bottom. You can see through here, first 20 laps, relatively equal, and between the two of them, not much of a difference. Giovinazzi briefly quicker there, but then Raikkonen seemed to be getting a bit more consistent there. But once Giovinazzi had the pit stop, and this was really the big difference at the end of the race, was just the fact Giovinazzi was able to pump in those quicker laps on the fresh tyres when Raikkonen was still out there. And Raikkonen, yes, he did catch up a little bit here on Giovinazzi, but there wasn't really a fadeaway in Giovinazzi's tyres. So as a result, Raikkonen couldn't actually make up the time that was lost by that earlier pit stop by Giovinazzi. And then looking at the histogram here, so Giovinazzi's quicker if it's on the left, Raikkonen on the right, relatively equal here in terms of the distribution. Giovinazzi, just these few laps, and as we saw with the graph on Raikkonen, just a little bit peaky towards the end. You could see these are really the laps that counted, these ones that are around a second, because in the middle bit, very, very similar performance here, and a few more for Raikkonen here, but it was really these laps here and those few laps, almost 2 seconds there, that really was the difference maker between these two. So that is a wrap up of the 2021 French GP for Alfa Romeo. If you'd like to see more teams analysis, check out the channel as well as the race overview video. Thank you.